The red keep wore its secrets the way old men wore scars. Hidden beneath velvet, remembered beneath laughter, aching in the cold hours when the torches guttered and the corridors emptied. Beneath the feasting halls and throne rooms, beneath the footsteps of kings and the quick soft tread of servants, there were other ways through the castle. Narrow arteries of stone where words could move faster than armies. Varys moved there as if he had been born to it. He was wrapped in plain wool that would have looked ridiculous on a lord and dangerous on a common thief. But the cloak did not matter. In the dark, cloth was only shadow. He carried a lantern with the wick turned low, not from fear of being seen. There were few eyes down here besides his own, but from habit. Brightness drew attention, and attention was a knife that never stopped sharpening. A boy waited in the mouth of a side passage, thin as a reed, face dirty enough to erase any notion of age. The child's eyes gleamed when the lantern found them. Varys's voice was gentle, as if he were speaking to a frightened animal. "My little bird," he murmured. "Did you sing?" The boy held out a scrap of parchment sealed with cheap wax. Varys took it between two fingers as delicately as he might lift a spider from a bath. The seal had been pressed with something improvised, perhaps a coin, perhaps the blunt end of a spoon, but the message beneath mattered, not the flourish. He did not read at once. He listened first because the castle itself always spoke. Water dripping, stones settling, the faint vibration of distant boots overhead. Somewhere above, a woman laughed too loudly, the sound muffled by floors and pride. Another child appeared behind the first, then another, and another still, until the tunnel seemed to fill with small shadows. They did not crowd him. They knew better than to touch. They were hungry for approval, not food, and Varys fed them with attention in measured spoonfuls. He broke the seal. "Read." His brows lifted the smallest fraction. Then he smiled, a soft curve that carried no warmth. "So," he said almost to himself, "he means to do it tonight." The children watched him as if he were a septon about to declare a miracle. "You will go now," Varys told the first boy, "to the kitchens. Find the one-eyed scullion. Tell him the wine meant for Lord Eddard Stark must arrive late. Very late." The boy darted off without a word. "And you," he said to the second, a girl with hair like burnt straw, "you will go to the Street of Silk. You will tell Chitaya that Lord Petyr Baelish has sent for the black-haired girl from Lys, the one with the pearl necklace. You understand?" The girl nodded. Her gaze flicked to the parchment, then away, as if the paper itself could bite. "And you," he said to the third, a boy with a cut lip, "you will go to the gatehouse. You will tell the captain there that the Master of Coin will leave the castle by the postern gate near midnight. He must be watched." The boy hesitated. Watched to help him? Varys's smile deepened by a hair. "To keep him safe," he lied, and the lie fell into place as neatly as a chess piece. The boy ran. When they were gone, Varys lowered his lantern and looked down at the note again. The message was not long. It did not need to be. The man who wrote it liked to believe he was clever, and clever men wasted words the way rich men wasted wine. Petyr Baelish was going to meet someone tonight. Not in a brothel, not in a council chamber, but in the dark spaces between, where favors were traded, where whispers could become wars. It would have been a fine move in his own mind, a small push to send a larger man tumbling. Varys set the note alight in his lantern flame. The parchment curled, blackened, vanished. Smoke rose in a thin ribbon, then melted into the damp air. Above them, the castle breathed. Above them, men dreamed of crowns and thought themselves safe. Varys turned, and his footsteps made no sound. Petyr Baelish had built his kingdom without stone. It was made of rooms like this, warm, perfumed, lit by candles that flattered the skin and softened the truth. The Street of Silk was a vein through the city's heart, pulsing coin and confession, and Petyr Baelish was its physician and its disease. He sat with one leg crossed over the other, boot polished, fingers clean, the kind of man who could stand in filth and still look like he belonged in a Lord Solar rather than on damp straw. His smile was easy, practiced, as if the world amused him more than it threatened him. The girl beside him wore a pearl necklace as promised, and a smile that did not reach her eyes. Her hand traced his sleeve as though he were a lover, not a customer. She had been trained to listen without hearing, to see without remembering. Petyr Baelish liked that. It made him feel powerful. It made him careless. A man knelt on the other side of the low table, head bowed. He was no lord, but he had the kind of face that moved through a crowd unnoticed. Forgettable, plain, built for secrets. "My lord," the man whispered, "Lord Eddard Stark has gone to the armorer again. He asks about the smith who made Jon Arryn's breastplate." Petyr Baelish swirled his wine. The liquid caught candlelight and looked like spilled rubies. "He is stubborn," he said lightly. "I do admire it, in a way, like watching a man try to hold back the tide with his hands." He also spoke with the king's squire, the one named Lancel. Petyr Baelish's eyes sharpened. Did he now? And what did our dear hand learn from that little lamb? The man hesitated. Only that the king drinks more than before, that he grows angry when spoken to about debts. Petyr Baelish laughed softly. Of course he does. A king who thinks in hammers does not like to be reminded of ledgers. The girl with the pearls leaned close. "You're in a good mood tonight," she murmured. Petyr Baelish touched her chin, gentle as a promise. "I'm always in a good mood," he said. "The world is full of men who believe they are honest. It makes life entertaining." He lifted his cup to the candle flame as if toasting it. In the wavering light, his reflection broke and remade itself with every small movement. One face, then another, then none at all. The informant's voice dropped further. "The gold cloaks are restless, my lord. Some say Lord Stannis Baratheon has fled because he fears for his life." Petyr Baelish took a slow sip. He tasted summer wine and opportunity. "Stannis fears plenty of things," he said. "Mostly joy. But if he has gone, it makes certain doors easier to open." He set the cup down. "Tell me," he asked, casual as if speaking of weather, "have you heard anything of the boy at the wall?" The informant blinked. "The bastard." Petyr Baelish smiled wider. "Bastard, wolf, pup, crow, names are cheap. I mean the one Lord Eddard Stark sent away. I hear he has a talent for earning loyalty." The informant swallowed. "I've heard only rumors." "Rumors are seeds," Petyr Baelish said. "You water them, they grow. You leave them dry, they die. Tonight we water." He rose. The girl's hand fell away. He kissed her forehead like a man leaving a child, not a woman. "Stay," he told her. "I have business." In the hallway beyond, silk curtains shifted as other girls watched him pass. Petyr Baelish's steps were light. His confidence was a cloak that never slipped. He did not know that the shadows moving behind those curtains were not all women. He did not know that the spider had decided the mockingbird song would end. He left the street of silk by a side stair and took a covered walkway that kept the night air off his face. He had always preferred the castle's quieter paths. Loud halls were for men who needed witnesses. Petyr Baelish needed only outcomes. The postern gate near midnight was a mouth half hidden in the castle side, used by messengers, smugglers, and those who wanted to come and go without the scrutiny of main gates. Petyr Baelish approached it with the casual ease of a man walking into his own parlor. The corridor was torchlit and narrow, stone sweating cold. His footsteps echoed, and he could hear the faint rush of the Blackwater beyond the walls, like a throat clearing before speech. He rounded a corner and saw them. Two gold cloaks stood by the postern door, hands resting on their swords, helms tilted forward to hide their eyes. They looked like any guards, any night watch, but Petyr Baelish's instincts were tuned to the fine edge of danger. He smiled. "Evening," he said warmly. "Are we expecting trouble?" One of the guards stepped forward. "Lord Petyr Baelish," he said. His voice was wrong, too smooth, too careful. Petyr Baelish's smile remained, but his mind moved. He measured distance to the door, to the nearest torch sconce, to the shadows where a third man might wait. "That's me," he replied. If you're here for a tip, I'm afraid I left my purse in my other cloak. The guard's hand tightened on his sword hilt. You are to come with us. Petyr Baelish laughed, a short burst. Come with you where? It's late. If the king wants to talk, he can do it in the morning. He's rarely lucid at night. The second guard shifted. Metal rasped. Petyr Baelish's eyes flicked to it, and in that instant he understood. This was not a request dressed as order. This was an order dressed as courtesy. My lords, Petyr Baelish said, softening his tone as if soothing a frightened horse. You've made a mistake. There are men in this castle who would love to see me dragged through the halls. There are men who would pay handsomely for it. But you will gain nothing except the displeasure of those who understand the coin. The first guard lifted a small parchment. We have proof of embezzlement from the royal treasury, he said. Proof of bribes. Proof of blackmail. Proof. Petyr Baelish's laughter died. For the first time, something like genuine surprise touched his face. He had always assumed the crown's ledgers were as muddled as a drunkard's thoughts. He had written half of them into that state himself. Proof? He echoed, and his smile became thin. From whom? A voice answered from the shadowed archway behind them, as smooth as silk drawn over steel. From you, my lord. Varys stepped forward into the torchlight. He wore no finery, no perfume. In plain wool, he looked almost human. Petyr Baelish's eyes narrowed. Ah, he said. The spider. Varys inclined his head. The mockingbird, he replied, tone mild. How lovely to see you out so late. Petyr Baelish looked between the guards and Varys. He considered. His mind searched for exits, literal and otherwise. This is a mistake, he said, and the words were not pleading but probing. You know what happens if you move against me. Varys's expression remained gentle. Doi. I know what happens if you do not stop. I know what happens if you are allowed to keep singing. Kingdoms burn, and little children scream, and men pretend it is all fate. Petyr Baelish's mouth twitched. You're sentimental, he said. That will be your death. Varys sighed as if burdened by pity. Perhaps, he said. But tonight, my lord, sentiment is not what kills you. Petyr Baelish's hand darted toward his sleeve. Where a small knife could be hidden, where a last chance might live. But the guards moved faster. A mailed fist slammed into his wrist, twisting. Pain flashed. The knife clattered to stone. Sharp sound in a narrow corridor. Petyr Baelish hissed. His composure cracked like thin ice. You can't do this, he spat. The queen is very busy, Varys said. And the king, well, the king is tired of being mocked. Petyr Baelish's eyes widened a fraction. He saw then what Varys had built. Not a simple arrest, not a knife in the dark, but a story ready to be believed. Evidence prepared, witnesses waiting, a narrative with weight. They dragged him toward the door. Petyr Baelish fought, but only briefly. He knew the value of choosing the moment to yield. He turned his head as they hauled him past Varys and hissed low, venomous. You think you're cutting a thread, he said. You're pulling on a noose. Varys watched him go, face calm, hands folded. When the postern door shut and the corridor fell quiet, he exhaled slowly. He did not smile. He merely listened to the castle again, and to the sound of one man's plans breaking. The black cells smelled of old piss and older despair. Men screamed down here sometimes, not because they were being tortured, but because the dark itself had teeth. Petyr Baelish sat chained to the wall with iron around his wrists and ankles, posture still somehow upright, chin lifted as if he were seated at a high table rather than on damp straw. He had bruises on his face where the guards' fists had landed, but his eyes were clear, bright with hate and calculation. He heard footsteps long before he saw the lantern glow. He smiled when it came, because laughter was a weapon and he had been disarmed of everything else. Varys stopped outside the bars. My lord, he said softly, as if greeting a friend. Petyr Baelish's smile sharpened. You're brave, he said, coming down here alone. Varys glanced around at the darkness. I am rarely alone, he replied. The castle has ears. Even here. Petyr Baelish leaned forward as far as his chains allowed. You'll regret this, he said. Not because I'm important. I'm not. I'm a man. Mendy. But what I do, what I set in motion doesn't die. You can't stop it with a cell. Varys's eyes rested on him. You speak of motion, he murmured. Of wheels turning. I have watched you spin them, my lord, and I confess, it is impressive. Petyr Baelish's lips parted. Not in thanks, but in suspicion. Compliments from Varys were never free. You don't come here for admiration, Petyr Baelish said. No, Varys agreed. I come for closure. Petyr Baelish laughed, and the sound echoed against stone. Closure, he repeated. Is that what you call murder? Varys's face did not change. No, he said. Murder is messy. It leaves questions. It leaves vengeance. I prefer endings. Petyr Baelish's eyes narrowed. You think you've ended me? Varys lifted the lantern slightly. The light caught something in his other hand. A small vial of dark liquid, stoppered with wax. Petyr Baelish's smile faltered for the first time. Poison? He asked, voice quieter. How common? Varys tilted his head. Common things are often effective, he said. And there is poetry in it, is there not? You have used poison in many forms, words, debts, promises. Tonight it is simply condensed. Petyr Baelish's chains rattled as he surged forward. You can't, he said, and there was real fear now, sharp as the smell in the cell. You need me. The realm. The realm will breathe easier without you, Varys said gently. It may still choke, of course, but at least it will not be strangled by your hands. Petyr Baelish's face twisted. You think you're saving it, he sneered. You think you're some hero, but you're just another player, another liar. Varys's gaze softened. I have never claimed to be a hero, he said. Only necessary. He uncorked the vial. The smell rose, bitter and faintly sweet, like crushed leaves. Petyr Baelish strained against his chains, but iron held him. He spat, a thin string of saliva that landed near Varys's boots. Varys did not flinch. He poured a small measure into a cup of water set on the floor outside the bars, then slid it through with the slow care of a man feeding a sick pet. You won't get away with it, Petyr Baelish said, breath harsh. Someone will ask questions. Someone will. Someone will be told you took your own life in despair, Varys said, voice kind. A sad end for a clever man. The ledgers will be found. The bribes will be traced. The king will rage. The queen will be busy keeping her children from scrutiny. And in the noise, you will be forgotten. Petyr Baelish stared at the cup as if it were a snake. I won't drink. Varys's expression turned almost regretful. Of course you will, he said, because you are proud, because you refuse to be powerless, because you cannot bear to die like a rat gnawing its own leg. You will drink because you will want the final choice. Petyr Baelish's jaw clenched. He glared at Varys for a long moment, then reached for the cup with shaking hands. When he drank, he did it in one swallow, eyes locked on Varys as if daring him to blink. The poison worked quickly. Petyr Baelish's breath hitched. His face tightened, then loosened, then tightened again. He fought it the way he fought everything, by trying to find the angle, the trick, the hidden door. But there were no doors in flesh. He slid down the wall, chains clinking like distant bells. His eyes rolled, then fixed again on Varys with sudden clarity. You're wrong, he whispered, voice thin. Chaos isn't a pit, it's a ladder. Varys watched him, lantern steady, as if witnessing a candle burn down. Perhaps, he said softly, but ladders break, and men fall. Petyr Baelish convulsed once, then stilled. For a moment, the black cells were silent but for the drip of water and the scuttle of rats. Varys turned his lantern and walked away, leaving the darkness to swallow what remained. The manse beyond the city walls belonged to a merchant who claimed it as a summer retreat, but no one truly owned a place like this. It belonged to the men who could keep its doors shut and its servants loyal. Varys entered through a side passage that smelled of wine and foreign incense. The guards at the gate had been paid to see nothing. The servants inside had been paid to remember even less. Illyrio Mopatis waited by the hearth, broad as a bear, draped in rich cloth that made him look like a moving tapestry. His rings caught the firelight and threw it back in bright little flashes. He opened his arms as if greeting a beloved cousin. "My sweet spider," Illyrio boomed softly, careful to keep his voice from carrying. "You look lighter." Varys's mouth curved. "A bird has stopped singing," he said. Illyrio's eyes gleamed with amusement. "Ah, the little one with too many feathers." "He had claws," Varys corrected, stepping closer to the table. On the table lay a map of Westeros weighted with smooth stones. Beside it, half hidden beneath a cloth of dark velvet, were 5 shapes that made the air seem thicker. Even without touching them, Varys could feel their presence, like a storm waiting behind a mountain. Illyrio swept the velvet back with theatrical flourish. 5 dragon eggs sat nestled like treasures in a pirate's chest. One was black, shot through with veins of deep red, as if someone had poured wine into obsidian and let it harden. Another was pale, nearly white, with faint gold flecks that caught the fire like dust. The third was green, so dark it bordered on black, its surface ridged like old bark. The fourth was mottled gray and brown, stony, almost dead-looking. The fifth was a strange blue, cold as winter sky, with a sheen that made it seem damp. "They are beautiful," Illyrio murmured, not mocking now. "A clutch altogether. Do you know what it cost me? What it cost us?" Varys's eyes moved over them with reverence that surprised even him. "More than gold," he said. "More than men." Illyrio nodded. "Years, names, favors, a ship sunk in a storm, a man's tongue cut out to keep him from boasting." He leaned in, voice lowering. "They were meant for the girl across the narrow sea." "A spectacle." "A symbol. A girl without a realm," Varys said. Illyrio shrugged. "Realms can be taken. Realms can also be burned," Varys replied, and his gaze stayed on the eggs. "We have played this game long enough to know the difference between a conqueror and a king." Illyrio's smile thinned. "And you have chosen your king?" Varys lifted his hands slightly, palms open above the clutch as though warming them. "Yes," he said. "He is in the north. He has no taste for cruelty, no hunger for applause. He has been shaped by cold and duty. He does not know what he is." Illyrio's eyes widened a fraction. "The bastard at the wall," he guessed. Varys's face remained calm. "The boy," he corrected. "The son." Illyrio laughed softly. "You would crown him? A crow?" "A dragon can wear black," Varys said, "and a true heir can be hidden in plain sight for the sake of survival." Illyrio rubbed his fingers together as if feeling coin. "And you would send him these?" he said, nodding to the eggs. 5? You are generous." "Not generous," Varys said. "Desperate." Illyrio leaned back, studying him. "Desperate men make mistakes." Varys's gaze did not waver. "Then let us not make one," he said. "We do not send them to him as a gift. We send them as a test, as a burden, as a promise he cannot ignore." Illyrio's face softened. For all his greed, there was something else in him too. A love of grand stories, of banners unfurled, of the world made anew. "How will you move them?" he asked. "The city watches. Ravens fly. Ships sink." Varys looked at the map. His finger traced a line northward, through the riverlands, toward the neck, toward ice. "In grief," he said. Illyrio blinked. "Grief?" Varys's smile returned, thin and sharp. "A body will be sent to the wall," he said. "A noble corpse, escorted by silent sisters. None will search a coffin closely. None will question what is sacred." Illyrio's laughter rumbled low. "You are wicked," he said, delighted. "I am practical," Varys replied. Illyrio's gaze fell to the eggs again, and for a heartbeat he looked almost solemn. "If they hatch," he whispered, "the world changes." Varys's voice turned very quiet. "It must," he said, "because winter is coming, and the realm has forgotten what true fear is." He reached down and touched the black egg with the red veins. It was cold, but beneath the cold, he thought he felt something. Faint as a heartbeat, stubborn as hope. Dawn in the red keep's Godswood was a different kind of silence than the tunnels. It was living silence, birds held back by mist, leaves damp with cold, the heart tree looming like a watchful god that remembered every lie spoken beneath its branches. Eddard Stark stood by the pool with his hands clasped behind his back. His face looked carved from the same stone as Winterfell's walls. Patient, weathered, wary. Ice rested at his side, the great sword too large for this southern place, too honest for its polished floors. Varys approached on soft feet, careful not to startle. In the mist, he looked almost like a pale ghost drifting between trees. "My lord," Varys said gently. Eddard Stark did not turn. "If you've come to spin webs," he said, voice flat, "do it somewhere else." Varys stopped at a respectful distance. "I have come," he said, "to cut one." Eddard Stark's head turned then, slowly, eyes narrowing. "Littlefinger," he said, and it was not a question. Varys's expression remained calm. "Petyr Baelish is dead," he said softly. "He died in the Black Cells, a tragic end. The king will be furious when he learns what was stolen from him." Eddard Stark stared at him as if trying to decide whether to draw ice. "You killed him." "I ended him," Varys corrected, "before he could end you." Eddard Stark's jaw tightened. "I didn't ask for your help." "No," Varys agreed. "You would not. Your honor does not ask. It simply walks into knives and calls it fate." Eddard Stark's hand drifted toward Ice's hilt, not drawing, but acknowledging its comfort. "Why?" he demanded. "Why now?" Varys looked up at the heart tree's carved face. Red sap streaked down like blood. "Because the realm is breaking," he said, "and Petyr Baelish was delighted to help it crack." Eddard Stark's eyes were cold. "You speak as if you care." Varys's gaze returned to him. "I care about the realm," he said, "and I care about the children who will suffer when men like Petyr Baelish play their games." Eddard Stark's mouth twisted. "And what game do you play?" Varys's expression softened, as if touched by something tender. "One that began before you ever came south," he said. "One that began with a promise made in blood and kept in silence." Eddard Stark's shoulders stiffened. "Don't," he said, low and dangerous. Varys did not flinch. "There is a boy at the wall," he said quietly. Eddard Stark's eyes flashed. The air seemed to sharpen. "You know nothing of him." Varys's voice stayed gentle, but it carried weight. "I know he is not what the court believes," he said. "I know the truth you have carried like a stone in your chest for years. I know why you never speak of the Tower of Joy." Eddard Stark's breath came out slow, controlled. "If you threaten him—" "I do not threaten," Varys said. "I offer. The realm needs a true heir, my lord. A king who can unite it. A king who can face what is coming." Eddard Stark's gaze flicked away, toward the pool, toward the heart tree, toward gods that did not answer. "He is sworn," he said hoarsely. "He has taken the black. Vows can be complicated," Varys said softly. "So can blood." Eddard Stark's voice turned bitter. "You think you can hand him a crown and he'll wear it? You think you can drag him out of duty and make him a king?" Varys's eyes held his. "I think," he said, "that he will be forced to choose whether duty means guarding a wall while the world burns behind him, or becoming the wall the realm needs." Eddard Stark's knuckles widened. "Leave him alone," he said. "If you have any decency at all, leave him." Varys's smile was sad. "Decency," he murmured. "That is a luxury, my lord. Winter will take it from all of us." Eddard Stark took a step forward, and for a heartbeat he looked like the man who had ridden into war with Robert Baratheon, who had watched friends die and kept riding anyway. "If harm comes to him," he said, "I will kill you." Varys inclined his head as if accepting a formal pledge. Then let us ensure, he said softly, that harm does not come. Help me, Lord Eddard Stark. Not for me, for him. Eddard Stark's eyes burned with grief he could not show at court. You don't understand, he whispered. Varys's voice dropped. I understand too well, he said. That is why I am here. The mist thickened around them, swallowing edges, blurring certainty. In the distance, the castle stirred awake, ignorant of the conversation that could change its fate. Eddard Stark looked at Varys for a long time, then turned away. Get out of my sight, he said. Varys did not move at once. I will send a letter north, he said quietly, to Maester Aemon. He will know what to do. Eddard Stark's shoulders sagged a fraction, as if the weight of years pressed down all at once. Gods help us, he murmured. Varys's smile was faint. Yes, he said. Let us hope they remember how. Grief opened doors that gold could not. 2 days later, a wagon rolled out through the city gates beneath a low gray sky. It carried an oak coffin bound with iron bands, heavy enough to make the wheels groan. Silent sisters walked beside it in their plain gray robes, faces hidden beneath cowls. Their hands were folded, their eyes cast down. Men stepped aside for them without thought. Even the most callous city guards knew better than to mock the dead. The body inside the coffin was real enough. An old knight who had died quietly in the Red Keep after years of service. His name already fading from memory. His death was convenient, his corpse useful, his dignity spent to purchase secrecy. The world rarely offered clean bargains. Varys watched from the shadow of a stone arch near the gatehouse. He wore the face of a common servant today, cap pulled low, shoulders hunched. No one looked twice at him. Men never truly saw what they believed they understood. As the wagon rumbled past, Varys's gaze lingered on the coffin. He could see it in his mind as if the wood were transparent. Beneath the knight's shrouded form, beneath the straw and cloth, there were 5 shapes wrapped in black velvet. They were nestled close like sleeping animals. Their weight made the coffin sit deeper on the wagon, and the iron bands bit into the wood as if trying to hold something dangerous in. A sister's head turned slightly as she passed, just enough to suggest awareness. Varys met the shadow where her eyes should have been and gave a subtle nod. The woman did not respond, but her grip on the wagon's edge tightened for an instant. The road north began as mud and noise. It would become cold and emptiness soon enough. Varys walked away from the gatehouse before the wagon vanished from sight. He did not like watching things leave. It made him think of all the times he had sent men to die with promises that felt true in the moment. He had told himself the realm needed sacrifices, and perhaps it had. Perhaps it still did. Above the city, ravens circled the great September's towers. Somewhere within the Red Keep, the small council would meet and speak of coin and war and rumors. They would speak of Petyr Baelish's sudden death with feigned sorrow and real hunger. The vacuum he left behind would draw in the greedy like air into a wound. Varys intended to fill it with something else. In a quiet chamber lit by a single candle, he wrote a letter in careful hand. Not to a lord, not to a king, but to an old man in black who had once been a prince. He sealed it with plain wax. No sigil, no flourish. Only the words within would matter. When the raven took flight, beating its wings against the cold air, Varys watched it rise until it became a speck. Then he turned away and began to plan the next cut, the next whisper, the next necessary cruelty. Because dragons were moving north, wrapped in grief, and the world was not ready for what would wake with them. The wall swallowed sound the way snow swallowed footprints. Even laughter seemed smaller here, as if the ice itself disapproved of joy. Jon Snow moved in the training yard with a sword in his hands and winter in his lungs. The blade was practiced steel, dull enough to spare flesh, but he swung it as if it were real, because men died here whether the weapons were sharp or not. Gren came at him clumsily, broad shoulders hunched, trying to remember Ser Alliser Thorne's shouted instructions through fear and frustration. Jon stepped aside, caught Gren's swing on his own blade, twisted, and tapped Gren's ribs with the flat of steel. Again, he said, breath steaming. Gren grunted, annoyed. You fight like a bloody lord. I fight like I want to live, Jon replied. PYP laughed from the side, then cut it short when Ser Alliser Thorne's voice cracked like a whip. Is this a dance? Thorne snarled. Or a fight? You'll be dead the first time a wildling sneezes on you. Jon ignored him as he had learned to do. Thorne's hatred was a constant wind, cold and pointless. The true cold came from the wall itself, from the knowledge that beyond it there was a wilderness that did not care about vows or birth or pride. He parried Gren again, felt the shock travel up his arm, and in that moment his thoughts slipped the way they sometimes did. Toward the south, toward Winterfell, toward a father who was not his, toward a name he did not have. He heard a raven croak. The sound made him glance toward the wooden steps leading up to the maester's small quarters. Maester Aemon stood there, wrapped in black and gray, blind eyes lifted as if he could see through the cold air. A raven perched on his arm, feathers sleek, head cocked. Jon's grip on his sword tightened. Aemon was a quiet presence at Castle Black, a frail old man who had outlived kings and seemed untouched by the small cruelties of the Watch. Jon liked him for that, trusted him in a way he did not trust most men. Aemon's head turned slightly, as if hearing Jon's gaze. He lifted his hand, a small gesture. Come. Jon hesitated. He looked at Gren, at PYP, at Thorne's scowling face. Leaving the yard meant inviting mockery. It meant giving Thorne another reason to hate him. But Aemon's summons carried a weight Jon could not name. He set his sword aside and walked toward the steps, boots crunching on frozen dirt. As he climbed, the raven opened its beak and made a harsh sound that almost sounded like a word. Jon stepped inside the maester's quarters, shutting out the wind. The room smelled of old parchment and herbs. A small fire struggled in the hearth. Maester Aemon reached out, hand searching. Jon took it, guiding it gently to the table. You're cold, Aemon said. Everyone's cold, Jon replied. Aemon's lips twitched. Not in the way I mean. He tapped the raven's leg. A small scroll was tied there, wax-sealed. Jon's stomach tightened. A letter? He asked. A letter, Aemon confirmed. His blind eyes turned toward Jon as if seeing straight into him. From far away, Jon reached for the scroll, fingers suddenly clumsy. He broke the seal. The words inside were written in careful hand. Not northern, not even truly Westerosi. They carried the scent of the south, of politics and poison. Jon read, his face drained of what little warmth the room held. Maester Aemon listened to his breathing. What does it say? The old man asked, voice quiet. Jon swallowed. The parchment felt heavy, as if it were made of lead. It says, he began, and his voice cracked, that I am not who I think I am. Aemon's hand folded slowly over the table edge, knuckles pale. Read it aloud, he said. Jon did, the words tasting wrong in his mouth. Talk of the Tower of Joy, of Lyanna Stark, of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. Talk of a child hidden to keep him alive. Talk of a true heir. When he finished, the room was silent but for the fire's weak hiss. Maester Aemon sat very still. Then he breathed out, long and trembling. So, he whispered, so it comes at last. Jon stared at him. You believe it, he said, half accusation, half plea. Aemon's blind eyes filled with tears that did not fall. I have been waiting for this kind of letter for many years, he said softly. Not this one, perhaps, but this truth. The world does not let dragons sleep forever. Jon's hands shook. Who sent it? He demanded. Aemon's fingers traced the parchment as if reading through touch. Varys, he said. Jon's mouth twisted. A spider in a southern court, he said bitterly. Why would he write to you? Aemon's smile was faint, sad. Because I am who I am, he said. And because you are who you are. Jon felt the room tilt. For years he had lived as a bastard, shaped by shame and stubbornness, clinging to the Watch because it offered a kind of clean slate. Now the slate was being ripped away. He wanted to tear the letter apart. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to ride south and put a sword through every man who had ever looked at him with pity. Instead, he stood there, breathing hard, and listened as the raven croaked again. Impatient, hungry, uncaring. Outside, the wall loomed, and somewhere beyond it the dead stirred in the dark, indifferent to names. Maester Aemon did not rush him. The old man had lived long enough to know that truths needed room to settle, or they shattered men like glass. Jon Snow paced the small room like a trapped wolf. His breath came fast, his thoughts faster. "My father," he said, voice sharp, "was Eddard Stark." Aemon's head tilted. "He raised you," he said softly. "That counts." "It's not the same," Jon snapped, and immediately hated the bitterness in his own voice. He pressed his palms to the table, leaning forward. "If this is true, if I'm Rhaegar's son, then everything I've been is a lie." Aemon's blind eyes lifted. "Not everything," he said. "Your choices were yours. Your loyalty was yours. Your pain was yours." Jon swallowed hard. The letter lay on the table between them like a blade. "Why tell me now?" he demanded. "Why does Varys care about me?" Aemon's mouth tightened. "Because the realm is bleeding," he said. "And men in the south are choosing sides without knowing what they truly fight for." Jon's laugh was humorless. "They fight for crowns," he said. "They fight for pride. They fight because they are afraid," Aemon replied. "And because they have forgotten the old fear." Jon's gaze snapped to him. "What fear?" Aemon's hand reached down beside his chair. For a moment Jon thought the old man might be searching for his cup. Instead, his fingers found the edge of a floorboard. He lifted it with surprising ease. Jon froze. "What are you doing?" Aemon's voice was calm. "Showing you why the letter came to me," he said. Beneath the floorboard was a narrow space, hidden under years of dust and neglect. Aemon reached into it and drew out a small iron key. He held it out. Jon took it automatically, mind numb. "In the storeroom," Aemon said. "Behind the sacks of grain that no one touches because they smell of mildew. There is a chest." Jon stared at the key. "What's in it?" Aemon's lips parted, and for an instant the old man looked younger, as if memory had peeled back decades. "Fire," he whispered. Jon moved through Castle Black as if in a dream. Men passed him, talking about rations and patrols, about wildlings and the cold. None of them looked at him twice. None of them could see the storm inside him. In the storeroom, the air was stale and sour. He found the sacks Aemon had described and dragged them aside. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely fit the key into the lock. The chest opened with a low creak. Inside, wrapped in black velvet, lay 5 dragon eggs. Jon stared, not understanding. They looked unreal, too perfect, too heavy with myth. He reached out and touched the nearest one, the black egg veined with red. It was cold, like stone left outside in winter. He pulled the velvet back further. The pale egg caught the light and seemed to glow faintly, as if remembering sun. The green egg looked like forest shadow. The gray-brown one might have been a rock if not for the subtle ridges along its shell. The blue one made him think of frozen lakes, of deep water beneath ice. His throat tightened. "How?" he began, then stopped because the question had too many answers. How did these come here? How long had they been hidden? How many hands had bled to keep them secret? He carried the chest back to Aemon's quarters like a man carrying a coffin. Aemon did not move when Jon set it down. He only listened, head turned slightly, as if hearing the egg's silence. "Do you feel it?" the maester asked. Jon's voice was raw. "They're just stones," he said, but he did not believe it. Aemon's hand reached out and rested on the velvet. "They were stones once," he murmured. "So were the eggs given to Daenerys Targaryen, and yet..." Jon's head snapped up. "Daenerys?" he echoed, shocked. Aemon's lips pressed together. "Rumors reach even the wall," he said. "A girl across the sea, a bride to a horse lord. 3 eggs, they say. Dragons in dreams. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything." Jon's pulse hammered. "Varys gave me 5, he said, voice low. "Why?" Aemon's blind eyes turned toward him, steady and solemn. "Because if you are who he claims," he said, "you will need more than a name." Jon stared at the eggs, at the impossible promise curled in velvet. He thought of the south, of the throne room of kings. He thought of Winterfell. He thought of Eddard Stark's face in the Godswood, hard and pained. He thought of a mother he had never known. His hand hovered over the black and red egg again. For a heartbeat he felt something so faint it could have been imagined. A warmth that was not warmth. A pulse that was not a pulse. He jerked his hand back as if burned. Aemon's voice was almost a whisper. "Dragons do not belong to men," he said. "Men belong to dragons. And if you wake them, Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, you wake the world." Jon's jaw clenched. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "No," Aemon agreed. "But winter rarely asks." Outside, the wind howled against the wall like an animal trying to get in. Inside, 5 eggs sat silent and heavy, and Jon Snow's life cracked down the middle. That night, Jon Snow could not sleep. Castle Black settled into its usual nocturnal rhythm. Men snoring, the distant clank of chains, the occasional shout from a watchman atop the wall. The wind never stopped. It moaned through cracks in stone and wood, a voice that seemed to know all the things men tried to forget. Jon sat alone in a small chamber near the maester's quarters where a fire had been lit in a brazier. It was a poor fire, hungry and thin, but it was enough to throw light and shadow over the eggs arranged before him. He had carried them from the chest one by one, setting them down carefully as if they might roll away into legend. Now they formed a half-circle like a council that refused to speak. He stared at them until his eyes blurred. He tried to pray, but he did not know to whom. The old gods watched from heart trees far to the south of the wall. The new gods watched from septs he had never loved. The gods of Valyria were ash and smoke, dead as their cities, unless these eggs proved otherwise. He rubbed his hands together and looked down at the black and red egg. Firelight danced across its surface, making the red veins look like fresh blood beneath skin. A raven perched on a beam above, silent and watchful, head turning in small jerks. Jon could feel its gaze like a pin against his neck. He thought of the vow he had spoken beneath the stars. "Night gathers, and now my watch begins." He had meant it. He had believed that the watch would make him equal, that black cloth could erase bastard blood. Now the cloth felt like a chain. Aegon Targaryen, the letter had called him. The name did not fit. It was too large, too sharp, too heavy with ghosts. He reached out and placed his palm against the black egg. At first, there was only cold. Then, so faint he might have imagined it. The cold pushed back. Not warmth exactly, but resistance. As if something inside the shell did not like the winter touching it. Jon's breath caught. He pressed a little harder. A memory rose unbidden. A dream from childhood, standing in Winterfell's crypts with Eddard Stark behind him, torches flickering against stone faces. In the dream, he had heard something moving in the dark between tombs, something breathing. He had woken with his heart hammering, certain something was coming for him. Now, with his hand against the egg, the same sensation crept into his bones. He drew his hand away. He stared at his palm as if expecting to see it burned. The raven croaked once, loud in the small chamber. Jon flinched. He looked up. "What?" he muttered, voice hoarse. The raven tilted its head. Its eyes were black coins. Jon swallowed and turned back to the eggs. He thought of Eddard Stark, alone in the Godswood, telling him once that the man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. Jon had carried that lesson like a talisman. If he was to be someone else now, king, prince, dragon, then he would need to carry the same kind of honesty, or he would become the thing men feared when they whispered Targaryen. He leaned forward again, slower this time, and rested his hand on the egg as if listening through it. Outside, snow whipped against the narrow window slit, a white blur in the dark. Inside, the fire popped, sending sparks up like tiny stars. Jon closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his lids, he saw a great hall of stone and ice. He saw a woman with a crown of blue roses bleeding into snow. He saw a man with silver hair falling forward as he died, eyes fixed on something beyond Jon's sight. He saw a tower crumbling, heard screams, felt heat. He opened his eyes with a gasp. The egg beneath his palm made a sound. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was the smallest thing, a faint tick like a pebble tapping stone. Jon froze, hardly breathing. He lifted his hand. A hairline crack ran across the black shell, thin as a strand of hair, catching the firelight like a blade. Jon stared at it, heart pounding so hard he thought it might shake the room. The raven above him croaked again, and this time it sounded almost like laughter. Jon looked from the crack to the fire to the snow outside, and he felt the world shift, not with a sudden turn, but with the slow, terrible certainty of ice breaking on a river. Whatever he had been, whatever he wanted to be, something inside that shell had heard him, and it had answered. The crack was still there in the morning. Jon Snow had dozed in snatches, head bowed over his own knees, waking every time the wind threw itself at the wall like a battering ram. Each time his eyes snapped open, he stared at the egg first, not the fire, as if the egg had become the true hearth, and the brazier only its pale imitation. When the sky outside began to lighten into a bruised gray, he leaned forward and held his breath. The fissure had not closed, not healed, not vanished like a trick of tired eyes. If anything, it looked slightly longer, as though the shell had sighed in the dark and given way by a hair. Jon reached out with 2 fingers and traced the line without pressing. The shell felt colder than it should have, cold enough to sting. He jerked his hand back, rubbing his fingertips together, then stared at the egg as if it had mocked him. A soft sound came from behind, low, warning. Ghost stood with his head lifted, red eyes fixed on the half-circle of eggs. His white fur caught the firelight and turned it gold at the edges. He had not slept either. Jon could see it in the stillness of him, the coiled attention, the way his breath barely moved his ribs. "It's nothing," Jon whispered, though he didn't believe it. Ghost's ears flicked, and the direwolf's lip curled just enough to show the edge of tooth. Jon's thoughts skittered. He kept seeing the letter, kept hearing Maester Aemon's voice, fire, kept tasting the name that did not fit him, Aegon, like a mouthful of ash. He wanted to throw the eggs into the snow and let the cold finish what time had begun. He wanted to hide them deeper than any cellar, deeper than any grave. Instead, he fed the brazier until the coals glowed a deeper red. The heat rolled over his face, warming his cheeks, drying his eyes without tears. He dragged the brazier closer, careful not to scorch the floor. Then he shifted the cracked egg nearer to the warmth, inch by inch, as if coaxing an animal to eat from his hand. Nothing happened. Minutes passed, then longer. Jon began to feel foolish. A cracked shell was not a miracle. It was more likely the egg had been damaged in travel. More likely the crack meant rot, not life. He imagined opening it to find nothing but stinking slime and dead membrane. He imagined Maester Aemon's quiet disappointment. He imagined his own hope turning to ridicule. Then the egg made the faintest sound again. Tick, tick, like ice forming on a pond. Jon froze so hard his muscles hurt. Ghost rose in a single smooth movement, hackles lifting, a silent growl vibrating in his throat. The crack spread, not quickly, not dramatically, but with patient inevitability. A thin line branched off the first, then another, forming a crooked star. Something inside pushed, and the shell resisted, and the resistance felt impossibly like will. Jon's mouth went dry. He leaned closer, face inches from the egg. A smell drifted up that didn't belong in this cold stone room. Not smoke, not ash. Something sharper, older, like scorched metal and rain, like a forge waking. The egg trembled. Jon whispered without meaning to, "Go on." The shell flexed, and for a heartbeat the crack widened enough for him to see darkness within, wet, gleaming, alive. Ghost's growl deepened. Not fear, not threat, but recognition. Jon's hand hovered, then lowered to the egg, palm open, not to force, but to steady. The shell was still cold beneath his skin, yet the air around it felt warmer than the fire warranted, as if heat had begun to rise from within the egg itself. The coals popped, sending sparks upward like tiny stars, and the egg answered with a thin, animal sound from inside, an exhausted, hungry rasp that made Jon's heart lurch hard enough to hurt. The shell broke with a sound like a bone snapping. A wedge of it caved inward, then pushed outward as something inside shoved again, furious and weak all at once. The egg split along its veins, shards falling into the brazier's ash with soft clicks, and a slick, dark shape heaved into the air. Jon saw scales first, black as pitch, glossy with membrane, threaded through with red like living embers trapped beneath skin. The hatchling's head emerged, narrow and sharp, eyes squeezed shut, jaws opening wide in a silent scream. Steam rose from it the moment it met the cold air, as though it carried its own heat in its blood. It made the room smell of metal and wet stone and something fierce. Jon didn't move. For a heartbeat, he couldn't. Then the hatchling flailed, claws scrabbling at shell fragments, and Jon's body remembered itself. He reached in and lifted it with both hands, careful and clumsy, as if cradling something that could bite his throat and he would still forgive it. The creature was lighter than he expected, all bone and hunger, but it felt heavy with meaning. Its tail lashed weakly against his wrist. Its wings, tiny, folded like broken parchment, trembled. It opened its eyes. They were dark at first, almost the same black as its scales. Then the firelight caught them and Jon saw the red bloom at their centers, like coals waking. The hatchling stared at him as if trying to decide whether he was food, threat, or something else. Ghost circled, head low, ears forward. The direwolf's breath puffed in white clouds. He did not lunge. He did not flee. He watched the hatchling like he watched a stranger at Winterfell's gate. Ready, curious, wary. The hatchling hissed at Ghost, a tiny, sharp sound. Ghost answered with a low rumble that made the floor seem to vibrate. Jon swallowed. "Enough," he whispered, not sure who he spoke to. "Enough." The hatchling's gaze snapped back to Jon. His nostrils flared. His tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Then it made a sound that was almost a question, thin, hungry, desperate, and it crawled awkwardly up Jon's forearm, climbing toward his chest as if seeking the warmth beneath his cloak. Jon's hands tightened instinctively to keep it from falling. His claws pricked through wool and into skin. He felt the sting and welcomed it. Blood was real. Blood meant this wasn't a dream. The hatchling settled against his collarbone, belly pressed to him, and shuddered. Heat seeped through Jon's clothes in a small concentrated pulse, startling and intimate. Jon could feel the creature's heartbeat, fast, frantic, fluttering against his own. His breath caught again, this time with something that felt dangerously close to joy. A soft scrape came at the door. Jon's head snapped up, panic cutting clean through wonder. He shoved the broken shell fragments under the brazier with his boot, then yanked his cloak around the hatchling so it vanished into black folds. "Jon," Maester Aemon's voice called, "Quiet. Are you awake?" Jon stood too quickly, chair scraping. "Yes," he croaked. He cleared his throat. "Yes, come in." Aemon entered slowly, guided by memory and the room's familiar shapes. The old man's blind eyes turned toward the brazier as if he could see the change in light. He paused, nostrils flaring. "You smell it," Jon realized, half-stunned. Aemon's mouth softened. "I remember it," he whispered, "even after all these years." Jon took a step forward, instinct screaming to hide, to deny, to bury. The hatchling shifted beneath his cloak and pressed closer as if sensing his fear. Maester Aemon lifted a hand, palm open. "Show me," he said. Jon's hands shook as he pulled the cloak aside. The hatchling's head emerged, eyes blinking slow now, calmer, curious. It stared at the old man, then let out a faint rasping chirr. Aemon's breath shuddered. Tears finally spilled down his cheeks, cutting clean tracks through age. "A dragon," he whispered, voice breaking. "A dragon at the wall." Jon's throat tightened. "What do I do?" he asked, and the question was not about the hatchling alone. Aemon's hand hovered in the air, searching. Jon guided it gently until it brushed the hatchling's head. The creature leaned into the touch for a heartbeat, then snapped its jaws lightly at Aemon's fingers, more warning than bite. Aemon chuckled through tears. "Stubborn," he murmured. "Like you." Jon tried to smile and found his face wouldn't obey. Aemon's voice steadied, turning hard with purpose. "You keep it alive," he said, "and you keep it hidden. If the men here see, they'll kill it," Jon finished. "Or they'll try to use it," Aemon corrected softly. "Both are deadly." The hatchling yawned, showing needle teeth, and settled again against Jon's chest as if it had already chosen. Jon looked down at it, at the impossible life warming his skin, and felt the world tilt further. Outside, the wall waited. Inside, fire had been born. Samwell Tarly's hands were shaking before Jon even spoke. Jon had found him in the library, hunched over a book that looked far too large for his body, lips moving as he sounded out words under his breath. Sam always read like a man hiding behind paper. Tonight, Jon needed someone who could keep a secret like it was a prayer. "Come with me," Jon said, and Sam's eyes widened as if expecting a beating. Did I?" Sam stammered. "Just come," Jon repeated, and his voice left no room for refusal. They moved through the corridors on quiet feet. Jon kept his cloak wrapped tight. The hatchling pressed against him, a warm knot beneath black wool. Ghost padded beside them without a sound, white in the dark like a shard of moon. In the storeroom, Jon shut the door and barred it. He set a lantern on a crate. The flame flickered, throwing their shadows huge and warped across the stacked sacks and barrels.
"Some swallowed."
"Jon," he whispered. "What's wrong?" Jon stood very still. His heart hammered. He was about to change Sam's life as surely as his own had changed. "Swear," Jon said.
Sam blinked.
"Swear what?" "Swear you won't tell anyone what you're about to see," Jon said. "Not PYP, not Gren, not Maester Aemon's raven. No one." Sam's face paled. "Is it about you?" he asked, and the fear in his voice was almost tender. "Because Jon, I'd never." "Swear," Jon insisted. Sam lifted a trembling hand. "I swear," he said, "on the seven, on the old gods, on anything." Jon exhaled. Then he opened his cloak. The hatchling's head poked out first, curious, eyes gleaming red-black in the lantern light. It blinked at Sam, then made a small rasping sound and crawled forward, claws catching on wool. Sam made a noise halfway between a gasp and a sob. He stumbled backward and hit a stack of sacks, which shifted and groaned. "That's..." Sam's voice broke. "That's not real." "It is," Jon said, voice flat with disbelief that still hadn't fully left him. "It hatched." Sam stared, mouth open, eyes wet. He looked at Jon as if seeing him for the first time. "How?" he whispered. "How is that possible?" Jon's jaw clenched. "Varys," he said, and Sam blinked, confused by the name like a foreign word. "The spider in the south. He sent eggs. 5 of them." Sam's gaze flicked to Jon's face. "Why would he?" "Because I'm..." Jon began, then stopped. The words still felt like knives in his mouth. Sam's eyes searched him, quick and smart behind fear. "Because of your mother," Sam guessed softly. "Because of who you are." Jon didn't answer, and that silence was an answer. The hatchling sniffed the air, then clambered awkwardly down Jon's forearm and onto the crate. It wobbled, wings twitching, and stared at Sam with bright, hungry eyes. Sam shrank back. "It's going to bite me." "It bites everything," Jon said grimly, but there was the hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. "It tried to bite Maester Aemon." Sam's shock shifted into something else. Wonder, perhaps, or the scholar's hunger to understand. He leaned forward a fraction, cautious as if approaching a wild dog. "It's warm," Sam whispered, noticing the faint steam rising from the hatchling's scales. Jon nodded. "It's like holding a coal." Sam's eyes flicked to the door. If anyone finds out, Ser Alliser Thorne he'll kill it, Jon said. Sam swallowed hard. Or he'll try to use it, he echoed, and the fact that he reached the same conclusion made Jon's stomach tighten. The hatchling hissed softly, then sneezed, an odd, sharp motion. A tiny lick of flame sputtered out of its mouth. It was barely more than a candle's breath, but it made the air shimmer. Sam let out a strangled sound and slapped his hands over his own mouth to keep from shouting. Jon stared, stunned again. The hatchling blinked, then yawned as if nothing had happened. Sam's hands dropped slowly. His eyes were huge. "It breathes fire," he whispered, voice reverent and terrified. Jon felt something cold run through him beneath the heat. An image of cities burning, of men screaming, of a throne room filled with ash. "It will," Jon said quietly. "If it lives long enough." Sam's voice trembled. "What are you going to do?" Jon looked down at the hatchling. The creature stared back, unblinking, and Jon felt impossibly seen. "I don't know," Jon admitted. "But I know this. If anyone tries to take it from me, I'll kill them." Sam stared at him, then nodded once, slowly, as if accepting a truth heavier than the wall. Then, Sam whispered, "We keep it alive." Ghost's ears pricked suddenly. Footsteps passed in the corridor outside, slow, casual. A man humming under his breath. Jon snapped his cloak closed and scooped the hatchling back against his chest. Sam killed the lantern with shaking fingers. In the dark, they listened. The footsteps paused at the door, just long enough for Jon's pulse to slam in his ears. Then they moved on.
Sam exhaled a silent prayer.
Jon held the hatchling tighter and realized, with a clarity that made him nauseous, that secrets were no longer just whispers. They were living, breathing, hungry things. Ser Alliser Thorne's eyes were always looking for weakness. He could smell it like rot. By midday, the cold had sharpened into something brittle. The training yard rang with steel and curses. Jon moved through drills with a focus that felt like drowning. One foot in front of the other, one parry, one strike, pretending he was only a bastard crow like the rest. But he could feel the hatchling even when it wasn't on him, as if its heat had seeped into his bones. He kept thinking he heard it in the back of his mind. The faint rasp of breath, the whisper of scales. Thorne stalked among them, cane in hand like a weapon. "Snow," he barked. "You're slow today." Jon said nothing. He lifted his practiced sword again. Thorne stepped closer, face inches from Jon's. "Thinking about Winterfell?" Thorne sneered. "Or thinking about your whore mother? Perhaps she taught you to lie down faster than you can swing." Jon's vision went red. His hand tightened on the hilt hard enough to hurt. For a heartbeat he saw Thorne's throat open, saw blood steaming on snow. Then he forced himself to breathe. "Again," Thorne said, delighted by the flicker of anger. "Come on, bastard. Show me your temper. It's all you've ever truly owned." Jon stepped back into stance, jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. He heard Gren's nervous breathing, heard PYP swallow, heard Samwell Tarly's quiet panic behind them, like a mouse hearing a cat. Jon swung. Gren blocked.
"Stilrang."
Thorne's voice cut through. "Is that it? A lord's little trick? You think you're better than these men because your father wore fur and sat in a castle?" Jon's chest burned. His breath smoked. He felt the urge to shout the truth, the one that would make Thorne choke on his own contempt. "I am not your bastard. I am the blood you fear." He held it in until it became pain. The hatchling, hidden in the storeroom under Sam's watch, was not here. But Jon could almost feel it stirring anyway, as if sensing his anger through stone. Thorne leaned close again, voice low and poisonous. "You've been slipping away at night," he murmured, whispering with the fat one, meeting with the old maester. "What is it you hide, Snow?" Jon's stomach turned. He forced his face blank. "Nothing," he said. Thorne smiled with cruel satisfaction. "Everyone hides something," he said. "Even bastards." He jabbed Jon's chest with his cane. "Fight," he snapped. "Fight like you mean it." Jon did. He drove Gren back harder than necessary, struck with a precision that made PYP flinch. Gren's guard broke, and Jon tapped his shoulder. Victory, but his blood was too hot to enjoy it. Thorne laughed. "There it is," he said. "That's who you are. A wolf with no pack." Jon's eyes flicked toward the wall, toward the endless ice. He imagined dragons flying over it. Imagined Thorne's face when he realized what had hatched under his nose. He lowered his sword and stepped away. "Enough," he said, voice tight. Thorne's smile vanished. "I decide when it's enough." Jon met his gaze. For a heartbeat, the yard went quiet around them, as if even Gren and PYP sensed something dangerous in the air. Jon forced his voice steady. "Then decide," he said. Thorne stared at him, searching. He wanted Jon to break, wanted him to snap and give Thorne the excuse he craved. At last, Thorne spat in the dirt. "You're nothing," he said. "Remember that." Jon turned away before his temper betrayed him. He walked toward the steps leading into the keep, feeling every eye on his back. Samwell Tarly hurried after him, pale and sweating despite the cold. He grabbed Jon's sleeve in the shadow of the doorway and whispered, "Jon, he knows something. I can tell." Jon's voice was low, controlled with effort. "Let him suspect," he said, "as long as he doesn't see." Sam's eyes darted. "And if he does?" Jon looked back toward the yard, toward Thorne's hard face and the wall's indifferent height. "Then," Jon said softly, "he'll learn what fear truly is." Jon did not want to tell Jeor Mormont. Wanting had stopped mattering. Maester Aemon's voice had been firm. The Lord Commander must know, or the secret would rot into disaster. Jon had argued until his throat hurt. Aemon had listened, then said only, "If you mean to protect it, you must build walls around it besides your own pride." So Jon stood in the Lord Commander's solar with his heart beating like a war drum. Jeor Mormont sat behind a rough wooden table scarred by years of knives and cups. He looked like a bear carved into a man. Broad, gray-bearded, eyes sharp as winter stars. He held a tankard in one hand and did not drink, as if the air itself had turned strange. Ghost lay near the door, head up, watching. Maester Aemon sat by the hearth, hands folded, his blind gaze fixed toward the sound of Jon's breathing. Jeor Mormont grunted. "Aemon tells me you have something to show me," he said. "Something important enough to pull me from reports and ranging plans. If this is another southern rumor." "It's not," Jon said. His voice was raw. Jeor Mormont leaned back slightly, studying him. "You look like a man waiting for the axe," he said. Jon's hands shook. He swallowed, then loosened his cloak. The hatchling lifted its head from Jon's chest and blinked at the room, eyes gleaming like coals in shadow. It made a small rasping sound, then curled tighter against Jon's warmth. Jeor Mormont stared. For a long heartbeat, he did not move. Then he set his tankard down very slowly, as if afraid a sudden sound would shatter the moment. "Well," he said at last, voice hoarse, "I'll be damned." Jon expected anger first, fear, orders. He did not expect awe. Jeor Mormont stood, stepping closer, eyes locked on the creature. "A dragon," he murmured, "at Castle Black, in my bloody solar." The hatchling hissed softly at the movement, tiny wings twitching. Ghost's lip curled, a low rumble warning that he would not let anyone take what Jon held. Jeor Mormont stopped, lifting his hands slightly. "Easy," he said, not to Jon but to the hatchling. He looked at Jon then, and the awe sharpened into something harder. "Where did you get it?" Jon's mouth went dry. "It hatched," he said, "from an egg. One of 5. Jeor Mormont's brows rose. "5?" he repeated, disbelief and dread tangled together. Maester Aemon spoke softly. "They were sent," he said, "from the south." Jeor Mormont's gaze snapped to the old maester. "Sent by whom?" Aemon's blind eyes turned toward the sound of Jeor's voice. "By a man who calls himself Varys," he said. Jeor Mormont's face twisted. "Spiders," he spat. "I don't like spiders." "Nor do I," Jon said. "But this one knows things." Jeor Mormont looked back at the hatchling. "Aemon," he said quietly. "Tell me I'm dreaming." Aemon's mouth curved faintly. "If you are," he said, "then so am I. And I have not dreamed in a long time." Jeor Mormont's jaw worked. He paced once, then stopped abruptly. "If the men see this," he said, "they'll panic, or they'll worship. Both are dangerous." Jon nodded. "Ser Alliser Thorne already suspects," he said. Jeor Mormont's eyes flashed. "Thorne suspects his own shadow," he growled. "But if he sees—" He cut himself off, then looked at Jon with sudden intensity. "Why you?" he demanded. "Why send dragons to a boy in black?" Jon's throat tightened. He felt the name behind his teeth, heavy as a sword. Maester Aemon answered instead, voice gentle and devastating. "Because he is not only a boy in black," the old man said. "He is blood of the dragon." Jeor Mormont stared at Aemon, then at Jon. "Say it," he said, voice low. "If it's true, say it in this room." Jon's hands trembled around the hatchling. He forced his voice out. "My mother was Lyanna Stark," he said. "My father was Prince Rhaegar Targaryen." The words landed like stones dropped into deep water. Jeor Mormont's face went still. He looked older suddenly, as if the years had caught him in a rush. "Gods," he whispered.
Ned Starks bastard. Ned Starks morsi. Aemon corrected softly.
Jeor Mormont's gaze dropped to the hatchling again. The creature yawned, showing needle teeth, then blinked slowly as if bored by men's revelations. Jeor Mormont exhaled. "If this gets out," he said, voice rough, "kings will come north, armies, priests, monsters in men's skins." Jon held the hatchling closer. "Then we keep it in," he said. Jeor Mormont studied him for a long time. Then he nodded once, grim and decisive. "We keep it in," he agreed. "And we prepare." Jon's brow furrowed. "Prepare for what?" Jeor Mormont's eyes lifted toward the wall, as if he could see through stone. "For the reason the Night's Watch exists," he said. "The reason men forget until it's chewing on their bones." Maester Aemon's voice was a whisper by the fire. "For the long night," he said. The hatchling shifted against Jon's chest, and Jon felt the small pulse of heat like a promise. Jeor Mormont's jaw hardened. "Keep it hidden," he ordered. "Feed it, guard it, and tell no one beyond this room and the fat one you trust. If Ser Alliser Thorne learns, I'll have him cleaning latrines until his hands bleed." Jon nodded, relief sharp enough to sting. "Thank you," he said, and he meant it. Jeor Mormont's gaze stayed on the hatchling, and the Lord Commander's voice softened into something almost like wonder. "A dragon," he murmured again. "Maybe the gods haven't abandoned us after all." Outside, the wind howled. Inside, fire breathed quietly against Jon Snow's heart. The dead waited for no one's politics. That night, the wind sharpened and the cold turned cruel. Men on the wall stamped their feet and cursed. Down below, Castle Black huddled in its own shadows, trying to pretend it was a fortress and not a wooden box at the edge of the world. Jon slept with his hand on his sword, and the hatchling curled against his throat inside his cloak, its heat a strange comfort. Ghost lay at the foot of the bed, eyes half open, listening to things Jon could not hear. A scream tore through the night. Jon was on his feet before his mind caught up. The hatchling startled awake, claws pricking his skin. Ghost surged up with a deep snarl that made Jon's blood turn to ice. Another scream, men shouting, the sound of something heavy slamming against wood. Jon yanked on boots, grabbed his sword, then froze and cursed under his breath. Steel would not stop what was screaming like that. He remembered the stories, cold hands, dead eyes, blades that did nothing. He grabbed a torch from the wall sconce instead, its flame sputtering as if reluctant. The hatchling hissed at the light, then leaned toward it, hungry. Ghost darted ahead as Jon wrenched open his door. The corridor was chaos. Men half-dressed, stumbling, shouting questions no one could answer. Somewhere close, wood splintered, A door shattered inward. "Lord Commander!" someone screamed. Jon ran toward Jeor Mormont's solar. He reached the doorway in time to see it. A dead man. One of the corpses the Rangers had dragged in days ago, stiff and gray, was on top of Jeor Mormont like a nightmare made flesh. Its skin hung in strips. Its eyes were pale blue ice. Its fingers clawed for the Lord Commander's throat. Jeor Mormont struggled, one hand gripping a knife that sank into dead flesh and did nothing. His face was red with effort, eyes wide with fury and fear. Jon didn't think. He charged, torch raised. The White's head snapped toward him, mouth opening in a sound like a wet cough. It lurched off Jeor Mormont and came at Jon with unnatural speed. Jon swung the torch into its chest. Flame caught on rotten cloth and dry hair. The White staggered, but it did not fall. It reached for Jon anyway, burning hands grasping. Jon stumbled back, heat blasting his face. He could smell charred meat, but the thing kept coming, relentless, mindless. The hatchling on Jon's shoulder suddenly reared, wings twitching. It opened its mouth wide. A thin jet of fire spat out, small, bright, furious. It struck the White's face. The dead thing shrieked, a sound that made men in the hallway recoil in terror. Its head ignited like kindling. Flame crawled over its skull, into its empty eyes, down its throat. It flailed wildly, hands clawing at its own burning flesh. Jon stared for half a heartbeat, horror and awe tangling in his gut, then shoved forward, driving the torch into the White again, deeper, harder. The creature stumbled back into a curtain that caught fire at once. The room blossomed into orange light and choking smoke. Jeor Mormont rolled away, gasping, grabbing for his sword. The White staggered, burning, and slammed into the wall. Its flesh cracked and split, releasing a stench so foul Jon gagged. It took one more step toward him, then collapsed in a heap of flaming ruin. Silence hit like a blow. Then men surged into the doorway, shouting, coughing, eyes wide. Someone hauled Jeor Mormont up. Someone tried to beat out the burning curtain. Someone else stared at Jon's shoulder. Jon realized too late. The hatchling was visible, perched there like a piece of living night, its scales glistening with firelight, its eyes glowing red-black. Smoke curled around it and it looked impossibly at home. A ranger's mouth fell open. "7 hells," he whispered. "Is that?" Jeor Mormont's head snapped toward Jon. His eyes found the hatchling. For a heartbeat, the Lord Commander looked like a man seeing the world change. Then he roared, voice cutting through panic. "Out!" he bellowed. "All of you out! Get water on that fire and get out!" Men obeyed because men always obeyed that voice. They stumbled backward into the corridor, still staring, still whispering. Jon stood frozen, torch still in his hand, smoke burning his lungs. The hatchling shifted and rubbed its head against Jon's jaw as if pleased with itself. Jeor Mormont coughed, wiped soot from his beard, and looked at Jon with something fierce in his eyes. "You," he said, voice hoarse, "stay." When the last man cleared the doorway and the corridor quieted to muffled chaos, Jeor Mormont stepped closer, eyes locked on the hatchling. "It saved my life," he said. Jon's throat worked. "So did the fire," he said weakly. Jeor Mormont's gaze sharpened. "No," he said. "That was not just fire." The hatchling yawned, then sneezed another tiny spark into the air as if to underline the point. Jeor Mormont let out a rough laugh that sounded almost like disbelief. "Well," he murmured, soot blackened and alive. "Now the wall has teeth." Jon looked down at the smoldering heap of dead flesh and felt the cold settle deeper. Because if the dead could walk into the Lord Commander's solar, then nothing, no vow, no wall, no secret was truly safe. And the dragon on his shoulder was no longer only a secret. It was an answer. Morning came gray and bitter, and Castle Black smelled of smoke. The men spoke in murmurs that tried to sound like jokes and failed. They pointed at the scorch marks on the Lord Commander's door. They argued about how the White had moved, how it had gotten in, how a corpse could fight like a man with purpose. And beneath every question, threaded like poison, was another. Did you see it? Jeor Mormont stood in the yard with a bandage around his throat where dead fingers had bruised skin. His eyes were bloodshot from smoke and lack of sleep. He looked as if he had aged a year overnight, not from fear but from certainty. Jon stood a few steps away, cloak wrapped tight, shoulders stiff. The hatchling was hidden against his chest, warm and restless. Jon could feel it shifting, sniffing, wanting air. Keeping it concealed now felt like trying to hide the sun behind a glove. Samwell Tarly hovered at Jon's side, pale as milk. He kept glancing at the men around them, at Ser Alliser Thorne, at the rangers whispering in little knots. Sam's fear had a new edge now, less about mockery, more about what men did when they wanted something badly enough. Maester Aemon stood near the steps, hands folded, head tilted toward the murmur of voices as if measuring them. Ser Alliser Thorne pushed through the crowd, cane tapping, eyes narrowed. "Lord Commander," he snapped, "this is madness. Corpses attacking in the night. Men babbling about creatures." Jeor Mormont's stare cut him off. "Men babble because they're frightened," he said. "They have reason." Thorne's mouth twisted. "And what of the other reason?" he demanded, voice rising. "What of what they claim they saw on Snow's shoulder? Some scaled rat spitting sparks like a mummer's trick." Jon felt heat flare beneath his cloak as the hatchling reacted to the sharp voice. He forced his hands to stay still. Jeor Mormont's eyes hardened. "Watch your tongue," he said. Thorne's eyes gleamed with contempt. "Or what?" he challenged. "You'll tell me dragons have returned? You'll tell me the world stories are crawling out of children's books? We're the Night's Watch, not a sept full of fools." Jeor Mormont stepped closer, and the yard seemed to shrink around him. "We're the Night's Watch," he said, voice low and deadly. "Which means we face what others refuse to believe. It's why we exist." Thorne hesitated. Jeor Mormont's authority was a physical thing. Even Thorne could not spit on it without consequence. Jeor Mormont turned his gaze to the gathered men. "A white attacked me," he said, loud enough to carry. "Fire killed it. Jon Snow brought that fire." Murmurs swelled. Thorne barked. "And the beast," Jeor Mormont snapped. "Enough!" The single word cracked like a whip. The yard fell quiet in fits and starts. Jeor Mormont's gaze swept the men, sharp as a blade. "If any of you speak of what you think you saw beyond these walls," he said, "I'll have you chained. If any of you try to pry into matters that aren't yours, I'll have you sent ranging until your bones freeze." He let the threat hang. The men believed him. Thorne's face reddened. "You're protecting him," he said, spitting the words like bile. Jeor Mormont's voice turned rough with a truth that felt like iron. "He saved my life," he said, "and he will save yours if the dead come again." Thorne's eyes flicked to Jon, hate sharpened by something that looked almost like fear. He bowed stiffly, not in respect but in obedience forced by hierarchy. Then he turned away, cane tapping hard in the snow-crusted dirt. As men broke into smaller groups again, voices lowered, Sam leaned close to Jon and whispered, "They won't stop thinking about it." Jon's jaw clenched. "Let them think," he murmured. "Thinking isn't seeing." Sam's voice shook. "Ser Alliser Thorne will look." Jon's gaze lifted to the wall's frozen face, towering above them like a judgment. "Then," he whispered, "we have to be faster than his eyes." Maester Aemon's voice drifted softly from behind, barely audible. "Secrets don't stay buried," he said. "Not when the ground is shaking." Jon's hand tightened around the edge of his cloak. The hatchling pressed against his chest as if listening. The men of the watch thought the night's horror was the white. Jon knew better. The white had only been a knock at the door. Something far worse was already on its way, and now Castle Black had lit a signal fire without meaning to. In King's Landing, fear wore silk. The small council chamber felt smaller without Petyr Baelish's lazy smile and easy shrugs. The chair he once occupied looked like a missing tooth, an absence that drew the eye and reminded every man at the table how quickly a court could devour its own. Cersei Lannister sat with her spine straight and her gaze sharp enough to cut. Her green gown shimmered in candlelight, a color chosen like a challenge. Joffrey Baratheon lounged beside her with the restless cruelty of a boy who had never been told no and could not imagine that the world might refuse him. Varys stood with hands folded, soft voice ready, face composed. He watched them as he always had, but tonight there was a new calculation beneath his calm. The realm was a board, and the pieces were already stained with blood. He needed the right move to keep it from tipping into ruin too soon. Grand Maester Pycelle fussed over parchment, coughs punctuating his words. Ser Barristan Selmy stood near the door like a monument, silent, stern, watching the boy king with quiet disappointment. "Where is the master of coin?" Joffrey snapped suddenly, bored and irritated. "I wanted him here. I want to know why my tourney gold is delayed." Cersei's lips tightened. "Mind your tone," she murmured, though it sounded more like a reminder to herself than to him. Varys dipped his head slightly. "A tragedy, your grace," he said. "Lord Petyr Baelish was found dead. A cruel twist. The stress of accounting can be quite heavy on delicate souls." Joffrey's eyes widened with sudden delight. "Dead?" he echoed. "How?" "A private matter," Cersei said sharply, eyes flashing at Varys, warning him not to spill too much in front of Barristan. Varys spread his hands gently. "The details are unpleasant," he murmured, "but the crown's ledgers are being reviewed. Certain irregularities have come to light." Pycelle coughed loudly. "Yes," he wheezed. "Misappropriations. Embezzlement. It is most shocking." Joffrey leaned forward, eyes bright. "So he stole from me," he said, grin widening. "I always knew he was a worm." Cersei's gaze snapped to Varys again, colder now. "If he stole," she said, voice low, "then he did not do it alone." Varys inclined his head. "Of course, your grace," he said softly, "but the city needs stability. The realm needs calm. Public hunts for conspirators can make men anxious." Cersei's smile was thin. "Anxious men talk," she said, "and talking men spread fire." Varys replied, tone gentle, eyes steady. "In a city full of wildfire, fire spreads quickly." Joffrey snorted. "I like fire," he said. "It makes people scream." Barristan Selmy's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Cersei's fingers drummed on the table. "You're fond of caution," she said to Varys. "I'm fond of the realm," Varys answered. Cersei studied him, searching for the hook beneath his words. "And what of Eddard Stark?" she asked abruptly. "He thinks he can threaten my children. He thinks he can stand in my halls and speak treason." Joffrey's grin turned sharp. "I want his head," he said. "I want it on a spike." Varys kept his face calm. Inside, he measured the moment like a blade's edge. Ned Stark alive was useful. Ned Stark dead was chaos. Beautiful chaos for some, deadly chaos for all. A public execution would inflame the north, Varys said softly, and perhaps the Riverlands. Men do not always kneel when you show them a sword. Joffrey's eyes narrowed. "Are you telling me what to do?" Varys bowed slightly. "Never, your grace," he lied. "Only reminding you that a king's strength is not only in punishment. Sometimes it is in restraint." Joffrey looked at Cersei, seeking approval. Cersei's eyes flicked, calculating. "Restraint is for those who can afford it," she said. Varys' smile was faint. "And those who wish to keep what they have," he replied. The candle flames trembled as a draft moved through the chamber. The city outside roared faintly, restless. Varys looked at the empty chair where Petyr Baelish had sat and thought, briefly, of a man dying in darkness. Then he looked at Joffrey Baratheon and thought of a realm dying in daylight. He would not let a boy's cruelty decide the shape of the war to come. Not when a dragon had just hatched in the north. Not when the true heir breathed cold air beneath the wall. Varys lowered his gaze and spoke smoothly of coin and calm. already turning the next knife in his mind. Dragonstone tasted of salt and stone and old rage. Stannis Baratheon stood before the painted table with his hands braced on its carved edges, shoulders rigid beneath dark armor. The castle around him felt like a mouth full of teeth. Dragon gargoyles leering from walls, torches spitting smoke that clung to the ceiling. Davos Seaworth waited at his side with a scroll in hand, fingers rough and nervous. A raven perched nearby, feathers slick with sea damp, watching with one black eye as if judging. Melisandre of Asshai stood a little apart, her red robes pooling like blood at her feet, her face calm as a woman watching a fire catch. Stannis' eyes flicked to the scroll. "Read," he commanded. Davos swallowed. "It's from King's Landing," he said.
No seal.
"No name, but you know," Stannis cut in. Davos nodded reluctantly. "It reads like a court man," he admitted. "A whisperer." Stannis' jaw tightened. "Read." Davos read aloud, voice careful with the words as if they might cut. The death of Petyr Baelish, the shifting balance in the Red Keep, the coming fractures. Then the letter turned, and Davos's voice faltered. "There is a true heir," Davos read, eyes widening. "Hidden long for safety, the son of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, raised as Jon Snow, sworn to the Night's Watch, alive, and..." Stannis' eyes narrowed. "And what?" Davos swallowed hard. "And a dragon has hatched at the wall." Silence slammed down. The sea thundered outside, waves beating the cliffs like drums. Stannis' face went very still. For a moment, he looked carved from the same stone as Dragonstone itself. Then his eyes sharpened with cold fury. "Jon Snow," he said, voice flat.
Ned Starks bastard.
"Not a bastard if the letter is true," Davos said quietly. Stannis' gaze snapped to him like a blade. Davos held it anyway, because Davos had learned that truth mattered more than comfort. Melisandre's lips curved faintly. "A dragon at the wall," she murmured, voice like velvet. "Fire in the snow." Stannis turned on her. "Do not turn this into your riddles," he snapped. "Say what you mean." Melisandre's eyes gleamed in torchlight. "I mean," she said softly, "that the Lord of Light moves, the darkness stirs, and fire answers." Stannis' jaw worked. He looked back down at the painted table, at the carved shape of Westeros, at the north spread like a vast wound of ice. "If this is true," he said, voice low, "then the realm has been lied to for years." Davos hesitated. "It wouldn't be the first time," he said. Stannis' mouth twisted. "It would be the greatest," he replied. He stared at the north, then at King's Landing, then at the Stormlands, as if measuring them against law itself. "If he is Rhaegar's son, then Robert was a usurper." Davos flinched. Stannis did not. He had never been sentimental about his brother. He had loved Robert the way men loved storms. Awed, battered, resentful. Melisandre stepped closer, voice gentle. "A king with dragons," she whispered. "A king with fire to fight the night." Stannis' eyes flashed. "Dragons do not make kings," he snarled. Melisandre's smile did not falter. "No," she agreed, "but they make men listen." Stannis stared at the letter again. His fingers tightened on the parchment until it crinkled. "Why send this to me?" he demanded. "Why not shout it from the rooftops?" "Because shouting gets you killed," Davos said simply. "And because the man who wrote it thinks you'll care about law." Stannis' gaze turned hard. "I do," he said, "more than anyone." The torchlight flickered, casting dragon shadows across the stone walls. Stannis looked like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, the sea roaring behind him, the world waiting below. He exhaled slowly. "If the dead are truly walking," he said, voice grim, "then the wall matters more than crowns." Melisandre's eyes brightened. "Yes," she whispered. Stannis' gaze fixed on the north. "If Jon Snow is the true heir," he said, "then the realm will tear itself apart trying to claim him or kill him." Davos's voice was quiet. Unless he claims it first. Stannis' mouth tightened. He hated the idea. He hated that law might demand he bend, not because he was weak, but because truth was heavy. Finally, he turned to Davos. "Send a raven," he ordered, "to the wall, to Jeor Mormont, to this Aegon if he truly exists. Tell him I will come north." Davos blinked. "Come north?" he echoed. Stannis' eyes were iron. "If a dragon has hatched in the snow," he said, "then something older than the Iron Throne is waking, and I will not be a king who ignores the end of the world." Melisandre watched him with quiet satisfaction, as if the fire had begun to move exactly where she wanted. Outside, the sea kept pounding Dragonstone's cliffs. Inside, Stannis Baratheon stared at a carved map of Westeros and felt, for the first time in years, that the realm's story was slipping out of Baratheon hands. Twilight on the wall made the world look like it had been drained of blood. Jon stood at the top with the wind ripping at his cloak, fingers numb despite the hatchling's heat pressed against his throat. The creature slept fitfully inside the wool, its tiny breaths warming Jon's skin in quick puffs. Sometimes its claws flexed in dreams, pricking him like reminders. Ghost stood beside him, white fur ruffling, red eyes fixed on the haunted forest spreading out below like a sea of black needles. The direwolf's posture was tense, as if the trees themselves were enemies. Far below, Castle Black's torches glimmered like small, uncertain stars. Jon leaned on the ice and stared into the north. He kept thinking of the White's frozen eyes, kept smelling burning flesh, kept hearing the hush that had fallen when men saw the hatchling's silhouette against fire. He could feel the secret straining now like a rope pulled too tight. A scrape of talons sounded on the ice. Jon turned. A raven had landed near his boots, feathers puffed against the cold. It hopped once, then held still, a scroll tied to its leg. Jon's breath caught. Ravens carried orders, news, death. They did not fly to the top of the wall for nothing. He knelt, fingers clumsy, and untied the scroll. The wax seal was plain. No sigil. But the handwriting beneath was careful, southern, and familiar in the way poison was familiar once tasted. Jon's eyes moved over the words. He read of Petyr Baelish's death, confirmed now as the courts accepted truth. He read of Eddard Stark cornered, of a boy king hungry for blood, of a queen tightening her grip. He read of whispers spreading like fire through dry grass. Then the letter's tone sharpened. The realm is breaking faster than planned. The wall has woken something ancient. The dragon you now carry is not only a weapon, he is a banner. You must decide whether to hide forever in black, or step into the storm and become what the realm needs before it tears itself apart. There are those who will come north, one in particular who believes in law more than love. Use him. Jon's hands tightened on the parchment until it bent. The hatchling stirred against his throat, sensing the tension, and made a soft, hungry noise. Ghost's ears pricked, and the direwolf stared into the trees below as if he'd heard something Jon couldn't. Jon folded the letter slowly. His mind felt like ice splitting, painful, loud beneath the surface, invisible from afar. He thought of Winterfell. He thought of Eddard Stark's face in the Godswood. He thought of the men in the yard whispering. He thought of Jeor Mormont's bandaged throat and grim eyes. He thought of Stannis Baratheon, a name he knew only from stories, coming north with law in his fist and fire in his shadow. He looked down at Castle Black and realized it was no longer a refuge. It was a cradle at the edge of a grave. Jon lifted his gaze to the horizon where the world blurred into snow and darkness. "I don't want a crown," he whispered to no one. The hatchling shifted, pressing its head against Jon's jaw as if answering anyway. Ghost let out a low warning rumble, staring into the forest like it was staring back. Jon rose, the raven hopping aside, and stood with the wind tearing at him. Below, men slept believing the night had passed. Above, the sky deepened into true dark, and Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, if the world demanded that name, stood on a wall of ice with a dragon against his throat and a letter in his hand, and understood with brutal clarity that the next war would not wait for him to be ready. It would come, and it would come for everything.